Mr. Solomon's voice is calm, but carries a weight of empathy that only comes with years of wisdom. It was a Monday morning, and the world outside was as indifferent as always. The office lights flickered on, casting long shadows over the empty desks, waiting for the workers to filter in, but there was one desk that never seemed to fill, no matter how hard she tried. Her name was Clarissa. She had been a good employee, loyal, dependable. But what no one seemed to understand, least of all her boss, was that loyalty didn't come without its sacrifices. Her daughter, Emma, needed her. Emma, who couldn't walk, who struggled to speak, and whose medical needs were as constant as the air they breathed. The doctor's appointments, the therapy sessions, the late-night crises. Clarissa had done it all, alone. And yet, she was always the last one to leave work, always willing to stay late to meet deadlines. No one could ever accuse Clarissa of not giving her all, but what they couldn't see was what happened before she got to the office, or after she left. The phone calls from the nurse when Emma had another seizure, the sleepless nights when Emma couldn't breathe properly, or when she needed help with the simplest tasks. One morning, Clarissa was late, again. Her boss, Mr. Calhoun, had called her into his office with the same condescending smile he always wore. "Clarissa," he said, flipping through some papers, "I don't know how much longer I can make exceptions for you. You're missing work again. And frankly, we need people who can be here on time. This job doesn't wait for personal issues." Her chest tightened. She knew what was coming. She had heard it before. "You're a good worker," Mr. Calhoun continued, still not looking her in the eye. "But we can't have someone here who can't commit to the job." His words stung, but she had heard worse in her life. She swallowed hard, but didn't say anything. "You know what?" he said abruptly, as if deciding on a whim. "Maybe it's time to consider if this is the right place for you. Maybe you need to think about what really matters to you." Clarissa's heart dropped, but she stood tall. "I'll be here tomorrow," she said firmly. But he shook his head. "You're not getting the point, Clarissa. This job, it's just not for you. You don't belong here anymore." She felt the sting of his words hit her like a slap, and just like that her world was shattered again. But she had no choice but to leave, to walk away, because there was nothing more she could do to make them understand. They didn't know. They couldn't know. As Clarissa stepped out of his office, she could feel the weight of all the eyes on her. She'd been written off once again. Another door slammed shut. Mr. Solomon's voice carries a quiet, powerful weight. If you've ever been told you didn't belong somewhere just because of who you are, you know what it's like. You know how it feels to be discarded when you're giving it your all. But sometimes, my dear, you have to walk through the doors that others won't open for you. Mr. Solomon's voice softens. Clarissa sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel. The tears burned behind her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. Not in front of them. She had to pick Emma up from school soon. Emma, who didn't understand why her mom was always so tired, why she had to leave her alone sometimes, or why she couldn't come to every single one of her therapy sessions. It was the same routine. Emma's school, the nurse's office, the constant back and forth between appointments, and now, after being fired, Clarissa had to figure out what to do next. How to keep the lights on, how to keep food on the table. She knew she couldn't go back to Mr. Calhoun. No matter how much she needed the job, no matter how many bills were stacking up, there was no going back to a place where she wasn't welcome, where her worth was measured by her ability to show up on time, no matter the cost to her family. But that didn't mean the world had stopped spinning. Clarissa wiped her face and stared out of the windshield, her mind racing. She couldn't sit still. She had never been someone to just accept things. So what now? What was next for her? The thought of starting over terrified her. It wasn't that she didn't have the skills. It wasn't even that she wasn't capable. No, the problem was that she didn't have the luxury of time. She didn't have the luxury of risk. Clarissa looked at her phone. There were missed calls. Her landlord, her mother, a text from a friend. But none of that mattered right now. She needed a plan. She needed to make a choice. Then, as if a light bulb went off, she remembered something, a real estate agent's card, a name she had kept for months, just in case. A friend of a friend had told her about the opportunities in real estate. There was always room for someone willing to work hard, they said. Could she really do it? Could she really jump into something so different? The stakes were higher now than ever before. There was no room for failure. And yet, as she thought about her daughter, she knew there was no other choice. She reached for the card. It was time to make a call, but the phone buzzed in her hand again, and this time it was Mr. Calhoun's number. Mr. Solomon's voice grows deeper, more resonant. "I bet you thought the phone call you got was going to be the end, but sometimes, my dear, life has a way of calling us when we least expect it." And when Clarissa looked at that screen, she didn't know what it would mean. But it was Mr. Calhoun calling her back. Mr. Solomon's voice is steady, yet filled with an undercurrent of something deeper. Clarissa stared at the phone screen, her heart pounding. It was Mr. Calhoun's name flashing across the screen, as if mocking her. She hesitated, unsure whether to answer. After everything he'd said to her, everything she'd endured, the last thing she expected was for him to reach out again. But she had no choice. She pressed the green button, bringing the phone to her ear. "Clarissa, it's Calhoun," his voice came through, as cold and distant as ever. "I've been thinking about everything, and, well, I need you to come in." Clarissa's eyebrows furrowed. Come in? After everything? Was this some kind of joke? "I'm not sure what you mean," she said, her voice steady but laced with disbelief. "I mean, I need you back," he said, his voice slightly more urgent. "We've been going through some things here. The team, they're struggling without you. I don't know if you're aware, but things have gone downhill since you left. You were a good worker, Clarissa. I was wrong. I should have seen that before." She wanted to say something. She wanted to tell him exactly what she thought of his sudden change of heart, but the words didn't come. The weight of his words hit her, but not in the way she expected. A part of her wanted to fight him, wanted to stand her ground. Another part, though, could see this as an opportunity. She could make them understand. She could go back, prove her worth in ways that they hadn't seen before. But at what cost? "I'm sorry, Mr. Calhoun," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "I can't come back. Not to that." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then his voice, lower and almost regretful, replied, "I understand, but I just thought I'd offer." Clarissa hung up, and for the first time in days, she felt a quiet sense of relief. She wasn't going back. She couldn't. But as she turned off the phone, a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to be faced with something bigger, something she wasn't ready for. Mr. Solomon's voice deepens, his words carrying a weight of understanding. "Sometimes life tests us in ways we can't explain, and when someone who's wronged you calls you back, they're not just asking for you. They're asking for your power. They want what you've got because they know what they lost when you walked out the door." Clarissa wasn't looking for revenge. She was looking for something more, something deeper than just proving him wrong. She was looking for peace. Mr. Solomon's voice shifts slightly, as if the story is about to take a turn for the better, but life had a funny way of showing us new doors, just when we thought all the ones behind us had slammed shut. Clarissa sat at the kitchen table, staring at the card in her hand. It had been sitting there, neglected, for weeks now. But today, it felt different. Today, it felt like the only choice she had left. She grabbed her phone and dialed the number on the card. It rang a few times before a voice answered. "Hello, is this Clarissa?" the woman on the other end asked, her tone warm and welcoming. "Yes, it is," Clarissa said, her heart beating faster with each passing second. "This is Sheila Williams from Williams Realty. I was given your name by a mutual friend, and I understand you're interested in pursuing a career in real estate. Is that correct?" Clarissa paused, taking in a deep breath. She wasn't sure how much longer she could keep pretending that everything was okay, but she had to try. For Emma, for herself. "Yes, I am. I've been thinking about it for a while now, but I'm not sure if I'm ready." Sheila chuckled softly. No one is ever really ready, Clarissa, but what I can tell you is that the work is hard and it takes a lot of dedication, but it's worth it. It offers flexibility, the ability to make your own schedule, and most importantly, it can change your life. It's not for everyone, but it might just be what you need right now. Clarissa sat back in her chair, feeling a sense of both fear and excitement. I think it might be, she whispered, almost to herself. Sheila continued, if you're serious about it, we can set up a meeting. I'll walk you through the basics. There's a training session coming up, and I'd love to have you join. Clarissa didn't hesitate. Yes, I'll be there. As soon as she hung up, she felt an unexpected rush of hope. She wasn't going to sit idly by anymore. She was going to fight for herself, for Emma, and for a future that was still hers to create. Mr. Solomon's voice pauses before speaking again, his tone now filled with the gravity of what is to come. You see, sometimes the path ahead isn't clear, but when you find something that lights a spark inside of you, you have to follow it. Clarissa wasn't sure where this new door would take her, but she knew one thing: it was better than where she had been. Mr. Solomon's voice is calm, but there's an edge of optimism. The training room was smaller than Clarissa had imagined. It smelled faintly of coffee and paper. A group of people sat around a rectangular table, some on their phones, others chatting quietly among themselves. Clarissa felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. She wasn't used to being in a room full of strangers, especially strangers who seemed so sure of themselves, so comfortable. But she reminded herself, this was her shot. This was the first step towards something better. Sheila was there, greeting each new face with a warm smile and a handshake. When she saw Clarissa, her eyes brightened, and she waved her over. "Clarissa, I'm so glad you could make it," Sheila said, her voice genuine. "This is a great group, and I think you'll fit in just fine." Clarissa smiled, though her stomach was still tight. She took a seat at the back of the room and looked around. The other trainees were a mixed group, some younger, some older, but all seemed to carry an air of confidence that Clarissa couldn't help but envy. Sheila started the session, her voice clear and confident as she explained the basics of real estate. The terminology, the processes, the ups and downs. For the first time in a long while, Clarissa felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just a job, it was a chance to build something from scratch, to take control, to carve out a future that didn't depend on anyone else's approval or expectations. The hours passed quickly, and by the end of the day, Clarissa's mind was buzzing with new information. She was exhausted, but in a way that felt right, like she was learning something she needed to know, something that would change everything. On her way out, Sheila handed her a packet with all the details about the next steps. "We'll be working with some clients soon," Sheila said with a smile. "I can tell you've got the drive. Keep it up." Clarissa nodded, her fingers tightening around the packet. She didn't know exactly what would come next, but she felt something shift within her, a quiet certainty. She could do this. She had to. Mr. Solomon's voice shifts, becoming more reflective. "You know, sometimes the hardest part is showing up. It's easy to tell yourself you don't belong. But the real courage? That comes when you step into a room full of uncertainty and choose to stay." Clarissa was learning that step by step. The world wasn't going to hand her anything, but it was offering her something more valuable than she had ever realized: opportunity. She just had to seize it. Mr. Solomon's voice carries a sense of quiet anticipation. Clarissa had never been one for risks. Life had taught her that risks came with too many consequences. She had learned that the hard way. But now, as she sat in her small apartment, the packet in front of her, she knew she was standing on the edge of something new. She glanced at Emma, sitting on the couch, her small hands drawing patterns on the notepad. Emma didn't understand the weight of the decision Clarissa had just made. She only knew that her mum was home, that she wasn't going to work, and that maybe, just maybe, things were about to change for the better. Clarissa set the packet aside and took a deep breath. She had already made the decision. She was going to go all in. But there was one thing left to do. Take that first real step. The call she had to make, the next step to set things into motion. It wasn't just about learning what she needed to do. It was about finding clients. She had to start making connections, building relationships, proving she was capable. She dialed the number Sheila had given her, her heart thumping in her chest. "Hello, this is Sheila," came the voice on the other end. "Hi, Sheila, it's Clarissa," she said, trying to sound calm, but the nervousness in her voice betrayed her. "I just wanted to check in and ask about the next steps. I'm ready to start. I need to know what to do next." There was a brief silence before Sheila's voice returned, full of warmth. "Clarissa, that's exactly what I like to hear. I'm proud of you. Okay, we have a few clients who need help with finding a property. It'll be a challenge, but it's the perfect opportunity for you to apply what you've learned. I'll set you up with an appointment tomorrow. Are you ready?" Clarissa swallowed hard. "I think so." "Good. You've got this. I'll send you all the details later. We'll talk tomorrow, okay?" "Okay. Thanks, Sheila." As she hung up, Clarissa felt a wave of emotions rush over her. Fear, doubt, but also something else. Something that felt like hope. This was it. The beginning of something new. She looked at Emma, who had put down her pencil and was now looking up at her with wide eyes. "Mommy," Emma asked quietly, "are we going to be okay?" Clarissa smiled, her heart swelling. "We will, sweetie. We will." Mr. Solomon's voice pauses, and then speaks softly, as if remembering. Clarissa knew, deep down, that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. It would be full of challenges, but it would also be full of possibilities. She wasn't sure where it would lead, but she had learned something invaluable in the hardest way. Sometimes the best things in life come when you take a chance and trust yourself, even when everything inside you is telling you not to. Mr. Solomon's voice is filled with gentle anticipation, like the quiet before a storm. The next morning, Clarissa woke up with a sense of purpose that had eluded her for a long time. The sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting a soft glow across her small apartment. She felt different today. There was no going back now. She had learned a lot in her first few days of training, but now it was time to step into the real world. To face the clients, the questions, the doubts. She wasn't just going to be a passive observer anymore. She was going to be a player in this new game. She double-checked the details Sheila had sent her the night before. A couple needed help finding a home, a young family, struggling to make ends meet, desperate to find something that could offer them stability. The listing wasn't extravagant, but it was exactly what they were looking for. Clarissa dressed carefully, choosing a simple but professional outfit. She'd never been one for flashy clothes, but she knew she had to look the part. The mirror reflected back a woman she didn't fully recognize, someone who was trying, for the first time in a long while, to build something, to be more than just a mother, more than just a worker who barely scraped by. She drove to the property, her nerves tingling in her chest. As she pulled up, she took a moment to breathe. This wasn't just about the job, she reminded herself. This was about proving to herself that she could do more, that she could provide, that she was worthy of everything she was fighting for. The young couple was already there, standing outside the house, holding hands. Clarissa could see the hope in their eyes, the quiet desperation that only people in their situation could understand. She introduced herself with a firm handshake, offering them a warm smile, though inside she felt anything but warm. "Hi, I'm Clarissa. I'll be helping you with the property today," she said, trying to steady her voice. "Nice to meet you," the woman said, her eyes tired but hopeful. "We're just really trying to find something we can call home. It's been hard." Clarissa nodded, understanding more than they realized. "I think this might be the place for you," she said, trying to sound confident, though the weight of the moment was heavy. She led them through the house, showing them each room, explaining the features, the potential. But it wasn't the house that made the difference. It was the way she spoke to them, the way she listened to their worries, their hopes. She wasn't just selling them a property, she was offering them a chance at a new beginning. She could feel it in her chest, that familiar stir of empathy, the same empathy that had made her fight for Emma's future. She realized that in this moment she was fighting for theirs too. At the end of the tour, the couple looked at each other, their faces lighting up. They were smiling, something they hadn't done in weeks. They turned to Clarissa. "We'll take it," the man said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." Clarissa's heart soared. She had done it. She had helped them. She had made a difference. Mr. Solomon's voice is low and steady, like a weight being lifted. "You see, my dear, that moment, when the client says yes, is more than just a sale. It's a moment of truth, a moment where everything you've worked for, everything you've endured, comes into focus." Clarissa didn't just close a deal. She changed lives, and that's worth more than any paycheck. Chapter 8. The Weight of the World. Mr. Solomon's voice turned somber, as if reflecting on the cost of the victory. But even as Clarissa drove home, the triumph of the day felt hollow. The job, though fulfilling, wasn't the answer to everything. It didn't erase the weight of the world pressing down on her. She pulled into her apartment complex and sat in her car for a moment, staring at the building, the life she had built, or the one she had tried to build, on the edge of survival. She checked her phone, messages from her mother, some bills she couldn't pay yet, a reminder about Emma's doctor's appointment tomorrow. Everything was still a battle, every single day. When she stepped inside, Emma was sitting on the couch, holding up a piece of paper with a big smile. "Look, Mommy, I drew a house." Emma's voice was full of pride. Clarissa smiled as she walked over and kneeled beside her daughter. The drawing wasn't anything extraordinary, just a simple house with a big sun in the corner. But in that moment, it felt like everything. It felt like a sign, a reminder that no matter how hard things got, she still had Emma, and Emma still had her. She hugged Emma tightly, feeling her daughter's small hands wrap around her neck. "I love it, baby," Clarissa whispered, holding her close. But as she sat back, something in her shifted. She was starting to see that the real challenge wasn't in the deals, the sales, or the appointments. The real challenge was the constant balancing act, the work, the motherhood, the responsibility. Clarissa wasn't just fighting for her future, she was fighting for Emma's future too. And every day, every choice carried that weight. Mr. Solomon's voice is filled with a quiet understanding. Clarissa was beginning to see the truth. The world wasn't kind to people like her, people who had to fight for every inch. But sometimes the hardest battles created the strongest warriors, and Clarissa was becoming one. It wasn't going to be easy, not by a long shot, but she had something most didn't, something that couldn't be taken away. She had the fight. Mr. Solomon's voice is soft, tinged with caution. It had been a few weeks since Clarissa's first sale. The days were starting to blend together. Appointments, showings, phone calls, and yet the pressure never eased. Every new client brought a new challenge, but it also brought a new sense of purpose. Clarissa had begun to feel like she was starting to find her rhythm in the real estate world. But with each new opportunity, there was always a lingering fear at the back of her mind. What if it all fell apart? This business, it was full of uncertainty. There were no guarantees, no safety nets. One afternoon, Clarissa was sitting in her car after a particularly long day of showings when she received a call from Sheila. "Clarissa, we've got a client coming in tomorrow. They're looking for something a little more upscale. A couple in their late 30s, professionals. I think you're the right person for this one. They'll be picky, but I believe you can make this work." Clarissa nodded as she listened, but inside she was already thinking ahead. A more upscale property. She hadn't dealt with clients like that before. The pressure of getting it right was heavier now, and with Emma's needs at home, the stakes felt even higher. "I can handle it," Clarissa said, her voice firm despite the doubt gnawing at her insides. "Good," Sheila said, the confidence in her voice reassuring. "Just keep them engaged. Listen closely to what they need. You've got this." Clarissa hung up, but the weight of the task ahead lingered. She knew that her future depended on these types of opportunities. Every successful deal meant a step closer to the life she was trying to build. But could she really live up to this challenge? Mr. Solomon's voice grows heavier, as if sensing the turning point. The next day, Clarissa met the couple at the property. It was a beautiful home, with high ceilings and an expansive kitchen. It had everything they could want, and more, the kind of house people dreamed of. She greeted them with a practiced smile, trying to suppress the anxiety building in her chest. The couple looked around, nodding as they inspected the rooms, but their silence made Clarissa's nerves spike. They didn't seem impressed. Not yet. "Is there something specific you're looking for?" Clarissa asked, trying to read between the lines. The woman, who looked to be in her early 40s, turned to her. "We want something modern, yes, but it has to feel warm, comfortable. Something that reflects our success, but also our values. Do you have anything like that?" Clarissa paused. She had dealt with picky clients before, but this felt different. The pressure was mounting. "Of course," Clarissa replied, her mind racing. "Let me show you something else I think might be a better fit." She led them to another part of the house, but as she spoke, she could see the skepticism in their eyes. She could feel the weight of their judgment, even as they tried to hide it. They weren't just looking for a house, they were looking for perfection. Clarissa felt her stomach churn. She was good at this. She had been trained. She had worked hard. But in this moment, everything felt like it was on the line. She couldn't afford to mess this up. Mr. Solomon's voice carries a somber truth. "You see, my dear, sometimes the hardest part of this world is not what you see in front of you. It's what you carry inside." Clarissa wasn't just fighting for a sale. She was fighting for a sense of belonging, for the peace of mind that came from knowing she could stand tall in any room. But these clients, they weren't just asking for a house. They were asking for a reflection of their worth. And when the stakes are high, it's easy to feel like you're not enough. Chapter 10. The breaking point. Mr. Solomon's voice deepens, a tone of quiet resolve settling in. It was the silence that did it. That heavy, suffocating quiet that hung between Clarissa and the couple as they moved through the rooms, inspecting every corner. Clarissa could feel herself slipping, the pressure mounting with every second. It wasn't just that they weren't impressed, it was that she wasn't impressing them. She had always known that the world could be unkind to those who weren't at the top. To women who had to fight for every inch, to mothers who had to sacrifice everything just to make it. But this felt different. This felt like a moment where she would either rise or break. The couple stopped in front of the living room windows, their expressions unreadable. "Well?" the man asked, turning to her with a look that made her feel small. "What else do you have? This doesn't quite cut it for us." Clarissa's heart dropped. She had shown them everything she had. She had put her best foot forward, and yet it wasn't enough. "I understand," she said, her voice tight but steady. "I'll make sure to find something else that fits your needs." They nodded, but she could see the disappointment in their eyes. They didn't see her. They didn't see the woman behind the agent, the mother who was doing everything she could to make a life for herself and her daughter. To them, she was just another salesperson, another face in the crowd. As they walked away, Clarissa stood there, frozen, the weight of their rejection pressing on her chest. She wanted to scream, to run, to escape from the feeling that she wasn't enough, but instead, she did something she hadn't done in a long time. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that this wasn't the end. Mr. Solomon's voice is steady, a reminder of what comes next. "You see, Clarissa, failure doesn't define you. It never has. It's the moments when we feel like we've been overlooked, rejected, that we learn the most about who we truly are." In that moment, Clarissa could have given up. She could have let their judgment determine her worth, but she didn't. And that, my dear, is where strength is born. Clarissa gathered herself, walking to her car with her head held high. It wasn't the outcome she had hoped for, but it was a lesson, a stepping stone, and tomorrow she would try again. Mr. Solomon's voice is gentle but filled with wisdom. The following week, Clarissa couldn't shake the feeling that everything was starting to fall apart. She'd spent the days following her disappointment in silence, quietly wondering if she was truly cut out for this new life she was trying to build. The sales, the clients, the never-ending pursuit of perfection, it was all starting to weigh heavily on her shoulders. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was Sheila. "Clarissa," Sheila said, her tone friendly but direct. "I've been following up on your clients. I know things didn't go as planned last week, but I want you to know you're doing better than you think. I'm going to set you up with a new client, someone who needs a little more time, and I believe this could be your opportunity to show them what you've got." Clarissa paused for a moment, unsure. "I'm not sure I can handle it, Sheila. I don't know what I'm doing wrong." There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then Sheila's voice returned, calm and reassuring. "You're not doing anything wrong, Clarissa. Sometimes clients don't connect with the first property, but that's not a reflection of you. You're learning, you're growing, but you have to trust yourself. You've got this." Clarissa exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift from her chest. "Okay, I'll take the client," she said, her voice more certain than she felt. "Good. I'll send you the details. We'll talk soon." Sheila's encouragement made Clarissa feel something she hadn't in a while, a sense of possibility. It wasn't over. She could still make this work. Mr. Solomon's voice takes on a softer tone. "Sometimes, my dear, the most unexpected help comes from the people we least expect." Sheila wasn't just offering Clarissa a second chance. She was offering her a lifeline. Clarissa had been drowning in doubt, and it was through that small moment of belief from someone else that she found the strength to keep going. The world wasn't going to hand her anything, but every once in a while someone would come along and show her that the fight was worth it. Clarissa arrived at the property a few days later, ready for another chance to prove herself. The house was charming, not as grand as some of the others, but there was something special about it, a warmth that filled the rooms, a sense of peace that seemed to radiate from every corner. The couple she was meeting this time had different needs. They weren't looking for perfection. They were looking for something real, a home. When they arrived, Clarissa greeted them with a smile, and right away she could sense the difference. These clients weren't here to judge her. They were here to find a place where they could build their lives together. The conversation flowed easily as they walked through the house, their questions less about the property's flaws and more about how it could fit into their vision for the future. They wanted to know about the neighborhood, the schools, the parks. Clarissa shared stories about the area, about the families who lived nearby, about the community events that made it feel like home. She didn't just sell them the house. She showed them the life they could build there. By the time they reached the backyard, the couple exchanged a glance, their faces lighting up. "This is it," the woman said, her voice filled with relief. "This is the one." Clarissa smiled, her heart swelling. She had done it. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she had finally connected, not just with a property, but with the people who needed it. As they finalized the paperwork, the couple thanked her, and Clarissa realized that this wasn't just about closing deals. It was about finding the right place for the right people. She hadn't sold them a house. She had helped them find their home. Mr. Solomon's voice deepens, carrying the weight of a quiet victory. "You see, my dear, success isn't always measured in dollars and cents. Sometimes it's in the lives you touch, the trust you earn, and the difference you make." Clarissa had learned something invaluable. This business wasn't just about houses. It was about helping people find a place to belong, and that was a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Mr. Solomon's voice becomes solemn, like a man who has lived through many trials. Success in real estate wasn't just about making sales. It wasn't even about being liked or respected. Clarissa was beginning to understand something deeper, that sometimes success came at the expense of things that mattered more: your integrity, your values, your beliefs. It all started when she received an unexpected call from a new client, a businessman named Greg, who was looking to purchase multiple properties for his company. He wasn't the type of client she was used to. There was an air of arrogance to him, something cold and calculating in the way he spoke. But Clarissa had learned not to judge clients too quickly. She met him at a property he was considering for purchase, a small but elegant home in a quiet neighborhood. As she showed him around, he didn't seem interested in the property itself. Instead, He was focused on the price. "This house is overpriced for its location," he said dismissively, looking around as if he were bored. "You should be able to negotiate a better deal for me." Clarissa felt the stirrings of discomfort. This wasn't how she operated. She had always been upfront with clients, treating them with respect, showing them the value of what they were investing in. But Greg was different. "I'm sorry, Mr. Gregg, but this house is priced fairly for its market value," Clarissa said, trying to keep her tone calm. "If you're looking for something lower, I can show you other options, but they might not offer the same value." Greg's face hardened. "You're not listening to me," he snapped. "I want a better price, and I want it now. I'm giving you an opportunity to make this happen. Don't make me regret it." Clarissa's stomach churned. She knew exactly what he was asking for. He wasn't interested in a fair deal. He wanted her to lower the price under the table, to bend the rules and cut corners. The temptation was there. She could make the sale. She could close the deal. She could walk away with the commission she needed. But she knew better. She stood her ground. "I won't do that, Mr. Gregg. I believe in integrity. If you want a fair price, we can work together within the bounds of the law. But I won't compromise my values for the sake of a sale." Greg sneered at her. "You're making a mistake, Clarissa. You'll regret it." He walked away from the property, leaving Clarissa standing in the empty house, feeling a mixture of relief and uncertainty. Mr. Solomon's voice takes on a tone of quiet strength. "You see, my dear, integrity is one of the hardest things to hold on to in this world. There are people who will test you, who will try to push you into situations where doing the right thing seems like the harder choice. But in the end, the only thing you have is your word, your values." And Clarissa was learning that the hard way. Success wasn't worth sacrificing your integrity. Not now, not ever. Mr. Solomon's voice drops, carrying the weight of a new hardship. Despite Clarissa's decision to stand firm, the aftermath was a lot harder than she had expected. Greg was not a client to let go so easily. The next morning, she found an email in her inbox. It was from her broker, a terse message with one line that made her heart sink. "Mr. Gregg has withdrawn his business from you. He's not happy with your decision. We've lost the deal." Clarissa stared at the screen for a long moment, the words blurring together. It wasn't the first time she had lost a sale, but this felt different. This felt like more than just a lost opportunity. She could feel the weight of it all. The bills piling up, Emma's doctor's appointments, the pressure of trying to build a new life from the ground up. Losing this deal meant not just missing out on the commission, it meant that she was one step closer to losing everything she had worked for. She could feel the tears threatening to come, but she swallowed them back. She couldn't afford to break down. Not now, not when everything was on the line. Clarissa grabbed her phone and called Sheila. When Sheila answered, Clarissa's voice cracked. "I lost the deal. Greg walked away. I did the right thing, but it doesn't feel like it." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Sheila spoke, her voice calm but firm. "Clarissa, I know you. You did the right thing. Losing a deal doesn't mean you've lost everything. The business will still come. People will respect you for your honesty, even if they don't see it now. You did what mattered." Clarissa felt a flicker of hope, but the doubt lingered. She wasn't sure she believed it. Not yet. Mr. Solomon's voice becomes more reflective, yet full of understanding. "You see, my dear, it's in the hardest moments that you begin to see the truth." Clarissa had done the right thing, but the road wasn't easy. She was beginning to see that in this world, you don't always get rewarded immediately for doing the right thing. Sometimes the price is higher than you expect, but the value of integrity, the worth of holding on to who you are, that, my dear, is something that can never be taken away. Mr. Solomon's voice is slow, deliberate, filled with quiet encouragement. Weeks passed after the Gregg ordeal. Clarissa's confidence had been shaken, no doubt. The weight of the decision, the rejection, it still lingered. Every client she met now carried the shadow of that moment. What if they too would walk away because of her refusal to bend? What if, in the end, it all turned out to be a mistake? She tried to push those thoughts aside, but they kept coming back. The world was full of people who would take shortcuts, who would do whatever it took to get ahead. And Clarissa, she was playing by the rules, but the rules didn't always reward the ones who did the right thing. But then, one day, as if by fate, something changed. Clarissa was at a coffee shop, scrolling through her phone, when she got an unexpected call. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, but the words were clear. "Clarissa, this is Mary from Hudson Enterprises. I've been following your work, and I have a client who's interested in a property you showed last month. They're ready to buy. I think you're the right person to close this one." Clarissa's breath caught in her throat. A serious buyer. "I don't understand. What property are you referring to?" she asked, trying to hide the surprise in her voice. "It's the property on Oakwood Drive, the one with the big backyard. My client saw it and has fallen in love with it. They want to close soon." Clarissa felt a rush of hope that she hadn't felt in weeks. Oakwood Drive had been one of the properties she thought was too small to sell to anyone looking for something upscale. But this was her chance. "Are you sure? I mean, they're ready to move forward right now?" Mary chuckled. "Yes, absolutely. They've been looking for months, and your listing is exactly what they've been waiting for. Can you meet with them this afternoon?" "I'll be there," Clarissa replied, her voice filled with newfound certainty. She hung up and quickly gathered her things, a smile creeping across her face. For the first time in a long while, she felt a surge of energy that wasn't driven by doubt or fear. She had a chance. Mr. Solomon's voice carries a warmth, the kind that comes after a long, hard journey. "You see, my dear, sometimes life doesn't give you what you want when you want it. It gives you what you need when you least expect it." Clarissa had been at her lowest, unsure of herself, unsure of her path. But it wasn't until she had held onto her integrity, until she had made the hard choice, that the universe opened up and offered her the opportunity she had been waiting for. Mr. Solomon's voice is steady, but there's a quiet pride in it. Clarissa arrived at the property on Oakwood Drive, her heart pounding with anticipation. She was prepared this time, no uncertainty, no hesitation. She had learned too much along the way to back down now. The couple waiting for her at the door seemed calm, but their eyes were filled with that quiet excitement that only comes when someone finds what they've been searching for. "Hi, Clarissa," the woman greeted her warmly. "We're ready to move forward. We've discussed it, and this is the place." Clarissa smiled and nodded, leading them through the property once again. It felt different this time, not just because they were buyers, but because she had finally realized what this was really about. It wasn't just about showing a house. It was about showing them a future. It was about offering them a place to build their lives. The closing went smoothly, and as the deal was finalized, the couple handed Clarissa the signed papers with a smile. "Thank you, Clarissa. You made this so easy," the man said, shaking her hand. Clarissa's chest swelled with pride. She had done it. She had closed the deal. But this time, it wasn't just about the money. It was about proving to herself that she was capable, that the hard choices, the late nights, the sacrifices, they were worth it. She wasn't just selling houses. She was building a future for herself and Emma, brick by brick. Mr. Solomon's voice takes on a reflective tone. You see, Clarissa didn't just win because she made a sale. She won because she stayed true to herself. She kept her integrity intact, even when it would have been easy to give up, to let the world define her. She chose the hard path, and in the end, that was the path that led her to success. Not just financial, but emotional. She had learned that the greatest victories come not from the things we gain, but from the strength we build along the way. Pause. Now, Clarissa is no longer a woman struggling to find her way. She's a woman who knows exactly who she is and exactly what she's capable of. Mr. Solomon's voice softens, his tone filled with a quiet finality. If you've ever had to fight for what you believe in, if you've ever had to stand tall in the face of adversity, you understand what Clarissa's journey has been about. It's not about the end, my dear. It's about the fight along the way. And sometimes, the greatest reward is knowing you stayed true to who you are, no matter what the world tried to tell you. Pause. If this story has touched you, if it reminded you of your own journey, I invite you to share it in the comments below. Because sometimes the door is only locked because we haven't found the right key yet. And I believe with all my heart that you have the key to your own future. End of story.